Hello, and welcome to You People, a talk show for the uninvited. I'm your host for this evening. My name is Roy Koshy. Now, what is a show, You People? What do you mean by You People? All right, calm down. I don't mean you people. I just mean You People. It's a talk show for people who are not seen in our media. We're going to learn about stories that we don't know about. We're going to learn about people that usually don't have a voice in our mainstream society. Who are they? What are they? And if you've ever been uninvited in any context, whether uninvited for political reasons or just you didn't get a Facebook event invitation, this is your home. All right, well, my name is Roy Koshy, and there's also a lot of bullshit and half-baked ideas that we do here on the show as well. So that's part of the show. We have a big show tonight. Our first guest this evening is a professor of theological studies at Bellamy University who's written a book called God's Lovers. Can we see that there? God's Lovers. This book has stirred up quite a bit of controversy, and we're going to talk to our author about that. Please welcome to the program, Professor Charles Halley. All right.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. Grab your mic there.
Sure.
So now, according to my notes here, Professor Halley, your book, God's Lovers, has put forth a controversial idea, specifically in regard to the Immaculate Conception of Mary, the Virgin Mary, and Immaculate Conception in general. Would you care to elaborate on your book idea?
Absolutely. Now, we've all heard the story of the Virgin Mary and her Immaculate Conception, which gave birth to Jesus Christ,
Sure.
who many people consider to be the Son of God and the Messiah. What a lot of people don't know is that there are many other tales of Immaculate Conception.
Other women have experienced immaculate birth.
Yes.
Because God evidently wasn't just interested in Mary, but he was interested in other women.
Yes, God was interested in many women at the same time as Mary, and even before that.
So how do you know this? What's your evidence?
In the book of Genesis, God tells Abraham's wife Sarah that she will have a son even though she is 90 years old. Sarah laughs this off, doesn't believe it, and then God says, "Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son."
That text can mean a lot of things, though. It's a little vague to me. I'm not sure.
Oh, yes, but later on in Genesis, it says, "And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age." Before this happened, God said to Sarah, "Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do?"
Wow. So not only is this an immaculate conception, but it's also an adulterous affair that God was having with Sarah.
Exactly.
Wow. So, okay, so Sarah is 90 years old. Is that God's thing? Is he into older women?
Well, they're not old to God. He is God, after all.
But you're claiming that there are many instances where God had sex and impregnated other women. So what is your evidence exactly? Why should we believe you?
Well, in recent years, many scrolls and biblical texts, long forgotten and lost, have resurfaced, one of the most famous of which is the Book of Hamish. This lost text was discovered in a cave in Jordan that many Christian refugees had hidden in after the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. This scroll and text contains not only the story of Mary as we know it, but the story of various other immaculate conceptions and miraculous births.
Okay, so I guess can you share what you have here?
I'd love to.
Sure.
Well, the most well-known story is of Apollonius of Tyana, who was a contemporary of Jesus Christ. God appeared to his mother in a vision, then she bore a child with supernatural powers. Then you have this magical man also performing miracles like healing the sick and raising the dead.
Okay, so we have now 2 instances of Immaculate Conception.
Oh, there's many more.
Really? There's many more.
Oh, yes. There's the account of Leah of Tyre. She was washing laundry by the riverside, as people were wont to do in that time. God appeared to her on the back of a turtle. They made love, and 9 months later, her son, Elad, was born.
So I have to play the skeptic here. Could Leah of Tyre have just made that up? Made up this account?
She could have, but she didn't.
Okay.
See, we have proof that she didn't, because according to these unearthed texts, there was a witness to this sex act, Rachel of Tyre.
Rachel of Tyre watched God and Leah.
Yes, precisely. In a way, she did. Let me read this to you. Rachel was also doing laundry in her own home, and here's what she says. "And then I heard his voice, and knew it was Yahweh. I did not just hear, alas. His voice moved my body, taking me to the river. I arrived upon Leah of Tyre, standing by the river."
So God actually physically summoned Rachel to the river.
To watch him have sex with Leah.
Okay, so what did Rachel see?
Well, Rachel didn't actually get to watch the act.
Okay, I don't understand that. She was there, but
Let me explain. According to the text, the vision of the Almighty ascended from the river. All of a sudden, mine body was spun around, in which mine eyes faced a tree away from Leah and he. I was blinded to the holy consummation behind me, yet mine back was scorched by the heat of passion.
okay, so I just want to get this straight. So God was having intercourse with Leah, but he had Rachel there, but he
Look, he wanted Rachel to be in the same space while they had sex, but have her back turned to them. Very specific.
okay, so is this the way that God, for lack of a better phrase, gets off?
It's one of many possible ways God gets a nut.
Okay.
Again, he's God. He probably has fetishes we can't even begin to fathom with our paltry human minds.
All right, well, okay. So was a turtle there?
The turtle was there. It is not clear whether he also watched or whether he was engaged in the sex act in some kind of a 3-way bestiality, diophilic combo, 3-way kind of action. However, either way, this is evidence of an early creating of a new fetish by the Lord. Even today, if you Google turtle watching or turtle sex, very few returns come up. And we all know that many different fetishes have been explored in the internet today.
Sure. No, I agree. Well, okay, so now you're telling, your book proposes that, or the text proposed that
Yes.
Leah's son, Elad, right?
Yes.
So did Elad have any special powers or divinity?
He had some powers, not as good powers as Jesus had. Jesus had excellent superpowers.
Sure.
Basically, all Eli could do was he could transform cold water into hot water with only a touch, but that's it.
Wow, no other powers beyond that.
Not so impressive, but a good guy to have around if you wanted to heat up some tea or have a hot bath. In those cases, he was very handy.
Right. Okay, so I don't mean to focus so much on this turtle, but is a turtle God's way of seducing his love interest? Is that like his animal?
He uses many animals to get around, depending on the situation, depending on what is necessary. For example, he appeared to Tamar of Damascus on a falcon.
What happened with Tamara?
Well, it was a very quick rendezvous, if you will. God came,
right,
and then left quickly. The scriptures tell that Tamar returned to the field where they made love and prayed loudly to God, shouting his name, but to no answer.
Wow, that's a little cold with God.
Well, it wasn't as if he could just text her at that time.
That's true, yeah, right.
Finally, Tamar decides to give up. She stops going to the field. She's depressed, doesn't leave her own house. One day, she is out doing her laundry. She decided to leave the house just for that. And God appears to her in the form of a burning lily.
He just appears in a little lily bush. That's it?
It's not exactly a bush. It's more of a small plant.
Yeah, right.
And what he said, and what is written, is that God said unto Tamar, I love thee, but alas, I am not in love with thee.
Oh, how does Tamara take that? I just got to ask.
She's heartbroken, of course, but then she started harvesting bread, and that took her mind off of the Lord.
Okay, so that means that everything worked out for everybody. That's great.
Well, in this story, but some of God's relations did not end so well.
Is that right?
Well, there's the account of Anna of Bethesda, whom God was actually married to.
Wait, okay, so you're telling me that God was legally married to, what's her name, Anna of Bethesda?
Yes. A ceremony was even held. Again, because God could not attend in his purest form for fear of blinding everyone with his presence, he showed up this time in the form of a flaming rose bush. This time he went full bush.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yes.
So how long was God and Anna of Bethesda married for?
They were married for approximately 200 years.
Okay, so I just got to ask, what went wrong between these two?
Well, on paper, being married to God is the most magical, highest form of existence one can conceive. But that reality is much different when it comes to day-to-day life. It can be very testing to be God's wife.
What are some of the challenges of being married to God?
Well, God has to attend to his universe, way beyond the earth even, which often takes focus away from the home. In these scriptures, Anna says, though I bow in awe of my God and true love and all his infinite beauty and power, I'd lay here tonight with a feeling of despairing loneliness.
Well, did God and Anna have children together?
Yes, they had 70 children.
They had 70 children?
Yes.
Now, did all 70 of these children have divine, messianic, supernatural powers of healing and whatnot?
Yes, they all had powers, but unfortunately, their powers are not all used for good. Let me read for you here. For instance, their firstborn Phineas had all the powers that Jesus had, but he only ever used the water into wine miracle, first to impress his peers and later to fulfill a fatal drinking habit.
Ooh.
Their 24th child, Asher, healed lepers, only he kept giving them extra limbs, like an extra arm or mouth, because he, according to text, was mightily tickled in amusement at such a sight. Their 38th child, Priscilla, could walk on water, but she just ended up staying in the middle of the ocean, never coming back home. Their 67th child, Matthias, was very spiteful and jealous of his older siblings and ended up summoning a plague of dead fish on the heads of children 42 through 66.
That is quite a family history. Wow. Well, so my question would be, how did God and Anna finally part ways?
Well, as I mentioned, it was not easy being married to God.
Right.
His omniscient powers created a very large imbalance in the relationship. For instance, Anna did not always know where God was, but God always knew if Anna was making eyes at a studly man in the market or fantasizing about a rugged, sweat-drenched brickmaker.
Right.
his nipples glistening in the sunset. And he would always give her the business about it.
That sounds like a difficult life. That does sound a little unfair, too.
Not only that, but God was still having sex with other women.
Really?
Yes.
So did Anna know about this?
Oh, yes, and she found out the hard way.
How did she find out?
Well, see, God could make love simultaneously with many different women due to his expansive presence. One night, God had a large orgy that included not only the town of Bethesda, but the towns of Bethany, Calvary, and Jericho. These texts describe the loud, collective, passionate cries of orgasm, calling it the Judean night of carnal flowering. And just because he could, God included the rugged, sweat-bedrenched brickmaker that Anna was secretly fantasizing about.
That is really brutal. That's really cold of God. So when this happened, what did Anna do about it?
Well, you could say that night Anna lost her religion. She became a vocal advocate against God, against praising God, or even believing in God. She's quoted in the scriptures, "Behold thine Yahweh, a no-good, adulterous cur of a deity. Alas, God is beneath the dung of a camel. To hell with him, for he is truly the filthy hole of an ass." You could say that Anna was the first atheist.
Okay, so who does God move on to next, I guess would be the next question.
Well, he remained single for a while, celibate for a good period of time. There are no official accounts of carnal activity until he meets Mary, mother of Jesus, and the rest is history as we know it.
Okay. So, according to your book, there have been no official records of any love interest from God since Mary. Is that correct?
That is correct, at least nothing of record.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think God moved on?
Some scholars conclude that the brutal death of God's son Jesus was so traumatic that he lost all desire to have relations with humans. Others propose that God may have created another species in another galaxy with many more holes, and that perhaps God is currently enjoying their company as we speak.
Okay. Well, my final question would be this. If somebody maybe watching or otherwise, if somebody out there wanted to have sex with God or, gain God's interest in them, is it a lost cause? I mean, should they bother? I don't know. I mean, is it possible?
Well, I never say never, but plenty of people scream his name during intercourse, and by all accounts, he shows no interest whatsoever.
Okay. Well, Professor Charles Halley, I just want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Let me just show. The book is God's Lovers. Pick it up at your local bookstore. Professor Halley, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to close out the show with a little bit of a commentary on an Upworthy video that I saw. And I just want to put this out there. I am not down with this Upworthy video. So, could we please just play that video really quickly?
My sister-in-law, who's half black, half white, but looks white. Blue eyes, whiter than most white folks, very white. So we're going in a Safeway one day. And Kathleen, my sister-in-law, is in front of me. And she's, writing a check for her groceries. Now, my daughter, who at the time was 10 years old, was standing with me, and I was directly behind her, getting ready to get my groceries. So Kathleen comes up, and the checker, who's a strawberry blonde, freckled, very delightful, warm, the checker, this young woman, is talking to Kathleen. Hey, how you doing? Isn't it a nice day today? They're just chatting up, and says, yeah. So Kathy writes her check, and she steps off to the side with her groceries because she's waiting for me. Of course, again, Kathleen looks white, right? So I come up. No conversation. She looks up at me. Absolutely no, just little chatter. And I write my check. My daughter, however, is 10, notices immediately the difference in how she responds to me. So I write my check, and she goes, I'm going to need 2 pieces of ID. At which point, my daughter looks at me, and she gets very, very embarrassed, and tears are kind of coming up in her eye, like, Mommy, you're not gonna let her do this. Why is she doing this to us, right? So I'm trying to figure out what I should do, because behind me are 2 elderly white women, right? And I'm thinking, okay, so then I become the angry black woman, right? And they're going to be, and I'm just trying to second guess all the drama. So then I just give her the 2 pieces of ID. I said, you know, some things you got to choose your battles, right? And then it gets worse. She pulls out the bad check book, right? So this is the book that shows the people who have written bad checks. So she starts searching for my license in the bad checks, at which point it's just out of control now. Just as I'm standing there trying to decide what to do, and it's really deeply humiliating. Now my daughter is in full-blown emotionally upset, who's 10. My sister-in-law walks back over, and she steps in and she says, excuse me, why are you doing this? And the checker goes, well, what do you mean? She goes, why are you taking her through all of these changes? Why are you doing that? She goes, well, this is our policy. She goes, no, it's not your policy because you didn't do that with me. Oh, well, I know you've been, she goes, no, she's been here for years. I've only lived here for 3 months. And so at this point, the 2 white elderly ladies go, oh, I can't believe what this checker has done with this woman. And it's totally unacceptable. At which point, the manager walks over. So the manager walks over and says, is there a problem here? And then my sister-in-law again responds. She goes, yes, there is a problem here. Here is what happened. So you see, she used her white privilege. And even though Kathleen is half black and half white, she recognizes what that means. And she made the statement. She pointed out the injustice. And she, as a result of that one act, influenced everyone in that space. But what would have happened? I can't know for certain had the black woman said, this is unfair. Why are you doing this to me? Would it have had the same impact? But Kathleen knew that she walked through the world differently than I did. And she used her white privilege to educate and make right a situation that was wrong. That's what you can do every single day.
Okay, I get why this is shared by a lot of social justice people on Facebook. And yes, people should recognize their privilege, and once you recognize that privilege and how you benefit from it, you should use this knowledge for good to help other people. Absolutely. I get that. Here's my issue. This video and this story, and I'm not accusing this lady, this woman for sharing this story. I'm not accusing her of doing this, but it reeks of white savior complex bullshit. It's waiting for white people to come in and say, I'm going to identify that racism's wrong, and that's going to spread around. There, we all understand our privilege, and now it's that privilege doesn't have control over you, our noble people of color friends, anymore. I have a problem with this because, like, first of all, like, I think that the sister-in-law character, they're going to make a movie of this Upworthy video, and Drew Barrymore or somebody's going to make an Oscar-winning turn as the brave sister-in-law who dismantles racism. But as far as, like, recognizing privilege, where does this clerk fit in on this? Is this racist-ass clerk going to go home and think about her privilege? I doubt it. She's a clerk at a shitty Safeway. I doubt she's going to sit at home and think about it. I guarantee you she'll turn on some bullshit like Sean Hannity that will revalidate how people of color just are getting a free handout, blah, 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 blah. That's my issue, okay? So, and again, like, it's asking people of color kind of to look to white people to give us our rights. And I don't know what the solution is beyond this, or I don't have another solution, but I just have a problem with, like, us all waiting for white folks to save us because they got a clue finally. I have a big problem with that. Second of all, she mentions the angry black woman, becoming the angry black woman. I think we tend to forget, we rightfully call out those moments when racism is wrong and destructive, but we tend to forget those moments when racism goes right. Let me explain. I think the angry black woman could serve as a great power in this particular situation. So now a destructive way of the angry black woman stereotype manifesting itself is that New York Times Alessandra Stanley review of Shonda Rhimes' work, just using this like broad brush of the angry black woman to redline a whole group of people. That was wrong. But I would say in this particular moment at Safeway, the angry black woman could be a superpower. Just become the angry black woman. Yes. That is a time where you should be the angry black woman. In fact, with this stupid racist clerk, whenever she asked for your ID, if you became the angry black woman right there, I don't think she would have looked at that bad checkbook. I think she would have been like, oh God, okay, don't make any sudden movements, just take the check, just take the check. In fact, don't take the check, just buy her groceries for her, just buy them for her. What are the steps What are the steps you take whenever you're confronted by the angry black woman species? What do I do? You know, because I don't think that this clerk being nice to her is really going to get a clue. You know, I really don't believe that. Call me a cynic. I don't know. And I would love it if this racist clerk just, every time a black person comes into the store, she just buys their groceries for them out of complete panic and fear. And then whenever a white person notices this and they're like, hey, are you going to buy my groceries too? She treats them like she would a black person. I will call the police. Get out of my face. I think this is a way that people could be aware of racism, personally, in a positive manner. Again, we forget to call out whenever racism goes right. For instance, I'll give you an example. I'm a man of Indian descent. My family's from India. Now, let's say that I'm at a party, and people just, for some reason, assume that I'm a doctor or something. Now, that sounds great. That sounds like a really noble profession. But, you know, it's a stereotype, and you're not getting to know me, and you're not allowing my humanity to flourish in that moment. Now, that hurts me a little bit, even though, like, I'm being assumed this noble profession that I'm not. But here's where racism goes right. Let's say the same person starts choking or having a heart attack at this party. And then everyone looks at me and says, hey, doctor, you got to help him. And then I turn around and say, I'm not really a doctor, you racists. Then that guy dies. It's a win-win situation. You know, see, hey, I can say, your own racism killed you, you dummy. You should have gone to the hospital and seen a doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the show. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode of You People. I want to thank, again, Professor Charles Halley for being on the show. And I want to thank all of you for watching. Please email us at youpeopletalkshow@gmail.com. Thank you, and good night.
Welcome to Ace Rodney Talks for the Superstars. Tonight, guest, the incredible